On a hot August afternoon in 1905, in a village on the Swiss side of Lake Geneva, a farm laborer finished his lunch, walked into his house, and killed his wife and both of his daughters. Within days, all of Europe had agreed on the culprit. Not the man, not the alcohol. 2 glasses of a green liqueur he'd had before he stood up from the table. 2 glasses. That's the number the world remembers. It is not the whole list. 3 years later, a country voted to write a ban on that drink into its own constitution. 7 years after that, America banned it too, and kept the ban for 95 years. So how does a drink end up on trial for murder? Who benefits when it's found guilty? And why can you walk into a liquor store tonight and buy the same thing off the shelf? Welcome to Poison Pantry. Let's open the file on absinthe. Absinthe didn't start in a bar. It started in a pharmacy. In the last years of the 1700s, in the Val-de-Travers, a narrow valley in the Swiss Jura, distillers were making a tonic out of a plant called grande wormwood. If you have never tasted wormwood, understand this. It is one of the most bitter things you can put in your mouth. Bitter in a way that feels like a warning, like your body would rather you stopped. For centuries, that was the selling point, because bitter meant medicine, and medicine meant it was working. Wormwood went into fever remedies, stomach remedies, anything a village doctor couldn't otherwise explain. The plant's Latin name is Artemisia absinthium. The word absinthe comes straight out of it. To make it drinkable, distillers added green anise and sweet fennel, the licorice notes that soften the edge. And what came out of the still was no longer something you endured. It was something you looked forward to. Then it went to war. French soldiers posted to North Africa in the 1830s and 40s were issued absinthe to mix into their drinking water. Those men came home. They came home with the taste, and with something more useful than a taste, the belief that it was good for them, that a doctor would have approved. That's how it entered France, not as a vice, as a prescription that had gotten away from the pharmacist. For about 40 years, nobody had a problem with it. Then a bug ate France. Starting in the 1860s, a tiny root-feeding aphid called phylloxera worked its way through the French vineyards and destroyed most of them. Wine, the national drink, the thing the country believed said something about being French, became scarce and then expensive. Absinthe didn't need grapes. It needed grain alcohol and herbs. It kept coming. So people drank what was there. By the 1890s, 5 o'clock in Paris had a name, l'heure verte, the green hour, and it came with a ritual anyone could perform. You lay a slotted spoon across the glass, set a sugar cube on the spoon, and let ice water fall through it, drop by drop. The clear liquid clouds as the water hits it, a slow milky bloom you can sit and watch. Cafe after cafe, at the same hour, the same sound. Water falling 1 drop at a time, a few 100 times over. Here's what most people miss. We remember absinthe as the drink of poets. Wilde, Verlaine, the men in the paintings with the glass in front of them. That's advertising that outlived the product. The truth is plainer, and it matters far more. Absinthe was cheap. Clerks drank it. Dockworkers drank it. Soldiers drank it. And so did their widows. It wasn't a curiosity anymore. It was what ordinary people drank. And to a certain kind of powerful man, that was the problem. Before we go further, I want to be precise about something, because the rest of this depends on it. There are foods that are genuinely toxic. There are foods that people only believed were toxic. Absinthe is the second kind. So this next part is not about what absinthe does to a human body. It's about what an entire continent was told it did. The charge sheet went like this. Absinthe caused seizures. It caused hallucinations. It caused blackouts and violent rages and a slow rotting of the mind that ordinary drink could never produce. Worse, and this was the part that frightened governments, it was said to pass down. Drink it, and you damaged not only yourself, but the children you hadn't had yet. The chemical they blamed was thujon, a compound found in wormwood, and the man who put it on trial was a doctor named Valentin Magnan, chief physician at the Saint-Anne Asylum in Paris. In 1869, Magnan ran an experiment. He placed animals under glass domes. Under one dome, he set a dish of pure alcohol. Under the others, dishes of concentrated wormwood oil. The animal breathing alcohol fumes simply got drunk. The animals breathing the wormwood oil went into convulsions. From that, Magnan gave the world a diagnosis. He called it absinthism, a disease, he argued, entirely separate from alcoholism, with absinthe as its unique cause. And this is where it turns. Magnan had not given a single animal absinthe. He'd given them the undiluted essential oil of one ingredient, at strengths no drinker would ever meet. It was like proving beer is lethal by locking someone in a room full of pure ethanol vapor. This was not discovered later. British physicians said it out loud almost immediately. The Lancet raised the objection in 1869, the same year, pointing out that the oil in the dome was not the drink in the glass. Nobody listened. And 36 years later, a court case handed the theory something no journal article could compete with. On the 28th of August, 1905, in the village of Commugny in the Swiss canton of Vaud, a laborer named Jean Lanfray sat down to lunch. That afternoon, he shot his pregnant wife and his 2 young daughters. He did not survive the year that followed his trial. I am not going to walk you through that house. What happened there was the worst thing in this entire story, and it does not need decoration. What matters is what came next. Because according to the account given at trial, here is what Lanfray drank that day, on top of a sandwich. 7 glasses of wine, 6 glasses of cognac, a coffee laced with brandy, 2 crème de menthes, and 2 glasses of absinthe. And then somebody did the math. Except nobody did. The newspapers reached into that list, pulled out the last item, and printed it as the cause. The local mayor called absinthe the source of the bloody crimes in their country. Not the wine, not the cognac, not the brandy in the coffee, the 2 glasses. There was a second set of victims too, quieter ones. Men filling the wards of Magnan's own asylum, drinking themselves to death on whatever was cheapest, who were now written into the ledger not as alcoholics, but as absinthistes. Mislabeled while they were alive. Mislabeled in the record after they died. So who wanted this badly enough to pay for it? Because a moral panic needs a customer. Follow the vineyards. Remember phylloxera, the aphid that ate French wine. By the late 1890s, the vines were coming back. Growers had replanted, and they wanted their tables back. The tables that had spent 30 years being served something else. You cannot legislate people into preferring your product, but you can make the alternative unthinkable. So the wine lobby funded and amplified a very specific story. Wine was French. Wine was civilization, moderation, the thing your grandfather drank. Absinthe was foreign, industrial, a poison sold to the poor. Temperance campaigners who wanted every drink gone took the deal happily because absinthe was the easiest target on the shelf. It belonged to laborers and soldiers and bohemians. Nobody powerful was going to defend it. And here's the detail that should stay with you. While the newspapers were calling it a national poison, absinthe posters were still going up all over Paris. Bright, green, cheerful, advertising the thing the same city was preparing to outlaw. Both campaigns ran at once, and both were making somebody money. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not a shortage of evidence. This was not a mistake made in good faith by people doing their best with what they knew. The objection to Magnan's method had been in print for 30 years in the most respected medical journal in the English language, and the full list of what Jean Lanfray drank that afternoon was said out loud in open court. But it gets worse. Because the people who won this fight didn't just get a ban. They got to write the version you still believe. If you're finding this one worth your time, subscribing is the single thing that decides whether files like this keep getting opened. It costs you nothing, and it takes about a second, then comes straight back, because the vote that follows is one of the strangest things a democracy has ever done. Somebody knew. They just didn't say it out loud. Belgium moved first in 1905, within months of the killings. Then came the canton of Vaud. the very place where it happened. A petition circulated there and collected 82,000 signatures, and in early 1907, the cantonal government banned the sale of absinthe outright. But Switzerland didn't stop at one canton. On the 5th of July 1908, the entire country went to the polls, not to elect anyone, to decide whether a drink should be allowed to exist. Roughly 7 in 10 voters said no. Think about what you're being asked to picture here. Not a police raid, not a health ministry. Your neighbors at a polling station, deciding by vote whether a drink gets to exist. And then writing that decision into the Constitution. The same document that defines how the country governs itself. A ban on a beverage sitting alongside the architecture of the state. It took effect in 1910. And the valley where absinthe was invented was now the valley where absinthe was illegal. Then America. On the 25th of July 1912, the United States Department of Agriculture issued Food Inspection Decision 147. There was no vote you could have attended, no debate on the floor of Congress, no new law at all. Officials used a law that already existed, the Pure Food and Drugs Act of 1906, and declared absinthe adulterated. That's the legal term, and it's doing enormous work. Adulterated means the product contains an added ingredient that could make it harmful. The added ingredient they named was wormwood. Import and interstate shipment stopped that October. Now watch what happens. France, the country that made absinthe its national drink, that built an entire hour of the day around it, didn't ban it until 1915, 3 years after America. The United States outlawed a French drink before France did, and it stayed outlawed for a very long time. 8 years after that decision, America banned all alcohol. Prohibition arrived, failed, and was repealed in 1933. Beer came back, whiskey came back, wine came back. Absinthe stayed illegal for another 74 years. But a ban is not the same thing as an ending. In the Val-de-Travers, the valley in the Swiss Jura where it all started, people simply kept making it, quietly, in farmhouses and back rooms, for the better part of a century. They adapted to the risk. They bottled it clear, skipping the green coloring step, so a bottle on a shelf looked like nothing in particular. You would have picked up one of those bottles and seen nothing worth reporting. Clear liquid, no label, not a word on it anywhere. They stopped using the name too. Locals called it la bleue, the blue, and if you knew, you knew. Distillers moved product to people they'd known their whole lives. Police in the region were, by most accounts, not especially motivated to hunt down their neighbors' grandmothers. That's not the strange part. The strange part is Spain. Spain never banned it. Not in 1905, not in 1915, not ever. Production continued legally there while the rest of Europe treated the stuff as poison, which meant that for most of the 20th century, the thing everyone agreed was too dangerous to exist was being made, bottled, and sold about a day's travel from Paris, if you could afford the fare. So can you buy it today in the United States? Yes. Right now, at an ordinary liquor store, on an ordinary shelf next to the gin. Here's how that happened. In the early 2000s, Switzerland revised its food laws and removed the constitutional ban, and legal distilling returned to the Val-de-Travers. In America, the turn came from an unlikely direction. A New Orleans chemist and absinthe historian named Ted Breaux, who had done something regulators hadn't. He'd analyzed old bottles. He brought data to the agency repeatedly for years. On the 5th of March, 2007, the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau approved a label for a product called Lucid Absinthe Supérieur. It was the first absinthe cleared for sale in the United States since 1912. 95 years. The rule that governs every bottle now is a definition. Under Federal Food Regulation 21 CFR 172.510, a product counts as thujone-free if it contains less than 10 parts per million, not 0, less than 10. The compound the entire panic was built around is legally permitted so long as it stays under a line drawn in a rule book. Hold that thought. because two things about the current rules tell you the fear never fully left. First, a bottle in America cannot be labeled simply absinthe. It needs a brand name attached, Lucid Absinthe Supérieure, St. George Absinthe Verte, because regulators worried the bare word signaled something other than a spirit. Second, under the Bureau's guidance issued in October 2007, marketing cannot suggest the product has psychotropic or hallucinogenic effects. Read that again. It is illegal today to advertise absinthe as doing the thing absinthe was banned for doing. So let's settle the question you've had since the beginning. Does absinthe make you hallucinate? No, it never did. You have probably heard that Van Gogh cut off his ear under its influence. That story attaches itself to absinthe because it makes a better sentence than the truth, which is that a man in profound psychiatric crisis harmed himself, and no drink explains it. But the myth survived on vibes for 100 years, and then somebody finally opened the bottles. In 2008, a research team led by Dirk Lachenmeier tracked down 13 sealed bottles of genuine pre-ban absinthe, dating from 1895 to 1910. The real thing, from the years everyone was frightened of. They ran full chemical analysis on the original liquid. The thujone levels came back no different from the absinthe you can buy today. Not higher, not secretly enormous. The same. Here's the part nobody tells you. The thing that was actually in the glass, ruining lives in 1890, was alcohol. Very strong alcohol, drunk daily, by people with almost nothing else. That is a real harm. Absinthe was not a hallucinogen, but it was a spirit at extremely high proof, and high-proof spirits hurt people. That was true then, and it is true now. The lie was never that drinking was dangerous. The lie was that one bottle on the shelf was uniquely to blame. And now, go back to that August afternoon. 7 glasses of wine, 6 of cognac, a coffee with brandy, 2 crème de menthes, and 2 glasses of absinthe. 2 glasses, out of 17 drinks. That was the evidence a continent convicted. This was not a scientific error. This was not an honest reading of ambiguous data. This was not a case of people lacking the information. The objection was published in 1869. The drink list was read in open court, and the vineyards knew exactly which competitor they wanted gone. Which is why this was never really a story about a drink. Every so often, a society decides that something has gone wrong. People are drinking too much, working too hard, dying too young, and it needs a name for the problem. A single bottle is a much easier villain than poverty, or cheap liquor, or an economy that leaves men with one affordable pleasure. Absinthe was green, foreign, and had no one powerful to speak for it. It made a perfect defendant. America convicted it in 1912 and took 95 years to admit it had the wrong suspect. Now you know what was in the glass and what wasn't. Would you order one? Tell me below. Next week we open another file. Until then, mind what's on your plate.